I'm Shannon Dorey, and in this 6th video, I will continue with this theme of music in association with astronomy. In my previous video, I talked about the part human musical sirens, centaurs, mermaids, and chimaeras, and their association with the 8 Nummo ancestors, who were also part human and master musicians. Because centaurs and music play such an important role in the old religion, I believe the original centaur's bow associated with the constellation Sagittarius may have been a musical bow rather than a hunting bow. The constellation Sagittarius is shown in this 1550 depiction from Guido Bonada's Liber Astronomia as a centaur with a hunting bow. In the Dogon religion, a red calabash or gourd was a symbol of a red giant star, and the gourd was often paired with the musical bow in various indigenous cultures, including in the Americas and Africa. To the Dogon, the music from the bow would have represented the vibrations of life coming from the red giant star, symbolized by the gourd. This is a sketch by Frederick Crystal, created in 1897, of a woman playing a tomo musical bow used by the Basotho people of South Africa. In my book, The Nummo, I refer to the historical relationship between the figure of the centaur and the Bison-man. Eugene Victor Walter believed that this 15,000-year-old cave engraving shows a Bison-man playing a musical bow. This engraving by Henri Boule is a depiction from the Trois caves in France. This ancient engraving may suggest that the centaur's bow depicting the constellation Sagittarius was indeed originally a musical instrument. The constellation Sagittarius is important because Sagittarius A is a supermassive black hole that is believed to be the center of our Milky Way galaxy. I believe it is associated with this Dogon omphalos stone altar that existed in the center of the Dogon star map. It was considered the navel of the world, Aduno Bogo, and the altar was of a red clay cone and identified with the red giant star that went supernova and created the formation and motion of the stars that we see today in the Milky Way galaxy. The center of the black hole contains the entire mass of the dead star. And these stars are so dense and make such a deep dent in space that not even light can escape from them. Delphi was considered the center of the Greek universe, and this is a photo by Bertold Werner of the omphalos stone displayed outside at Delphi, Greece, which looks exactly like the Dogon stone altar. Writing in the 2nd century, Pausanias described a woolen cloth wrapped around the stone at Delphi with precious stones found inside the cloth, designed in the shape of a mermaid, with 2 gilded eagles fixed on top. The 8 Nummo ancestors were described as being like mermaids, with human upper bodies and fish-tailed lower bodies. The dual eagles are associated with the dual bird sirens and the duality of the ancestors. In the Nummo, I identify the symbol of the eagle with regeneration and the 7th Nummo ancestor, who was known as the master mistress of speech. She was the purest of all the 8 Nummo ancestors. The omphalos, or navel stone at Delphi, was guarded by Python, who, like the alien Nummo, was serpent-like. This is an architrave with centaur sirens or chimaeras worshipping Jain stupa, dated to around 100 BC. The bell-shaped stupa shown on the architrave is similar to an omphalos or navel stone. This architrave was uncovered at Kankali Tilla in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. I believe it is associated with Mount Meru, revered as the center of all, not unlike the Omphalos at Delphi. I refer to Mount Meru in the Nummo and suggest it could be associated with the large black hole in the middle of the Milky Way galaxy because of references to churning the ocean of milk and the cosmic waters. It is possible that the depiction of Sagittarius with the centaur and hunting bow may have developed because the arrow, which was a symbol of males in the Dogon religion, represented the celestial origin of humanity. The Dogon word Sagittara, which meant powerful, strong, and designated a young man, suggests it has a lost etymological association with the word Sagittarius used to describe the constellation. The arrow was also a symbol of regeneration, which may suggest that the vibrations coming from the black hole could have a regenerative quality to them. Red calabashes or gourds as well as bells were symbols of the divine feminine and red giant stars. I believe the drum may have been a symbol of males in a black hole. The seventh Nummo ancestor, who was the master mistress of speech, taught the Dogon how to make the armpit drum, shown here in this drawing. The drum had a copper spiral twirled around inside it, which was used to channel the sound, which was the word, and symbolized the musical vibrations of life. It also had two hemispherical wooden cups connected through their centers by a slender cylinder-like hourglass with a long neck. I believe that the two wooden cups in the drum are mimicking 2 points in space connected together through a black hole. Theoretical physicist Nikodem Pawlowski conjectured that when a black hole forms upon the collapse of a dying star, a universe is born at the same time from the white hole on the other side of the wormhole. This would suggest that like a red giant star, the vibrations of life are also found in black holes, hence the musical association with the drum and bow. This is a photo of the drum held by a Dogon musician in the 1930s. The drummer could tighten or relax the tension on the skin to modify the tone by pressing on the hollow structure of thin wood. Besides being depicted as the constellation Sagittarius, centaurs also appear in many ancient depictions of the constellation Centaurus, including this one by John Flamsteed from 1776. The Alpha Centauri system in the constellation Centaurus is the closest star system to Earth. It is believed to be older than our solar system, with some estimates from 4.85 to 5.4 billion years, and some estimates as old as 7 billion years. Earlier I referred to the connection between the centaur and the Bison-man. According to Gavin White, the figure of the Greek constellation Centaurus can be traced back to the Babylonian constellation known as the Bison-man. From very early times, the Bison-man was closely associated with the Babylonian sun god Utu Shamash. Shamash is addressed in the famous law code of Hammurabi, dated 1792 to 1750 BC, as the one who provided humanity with law. In an earlier video, a horned Moses, shown here in the sculpture by Michelangelo, provided the Jews with laws, and a horned Fuxi, shown here, provided the Chinese with laws. On an earlier cylinder sill, dated 2300 BC, Shamash appears with horns, but this much later tablet, photographed by Ketolo Furomai and dated 888 to 855 BC, Shamash doesn't have horns but sits on his throne dispensing justice with the rod and ring symbol. There are, however, dual human-headed horned bulls or bison appearing on the inset, shown enlarged here. which alludes to his earlier appearance. Once again, we see this duality, which is important as it applies to the 8 Nummo ancestors who were horned and dual beings. I believe it is because of these bison associations that reverence was given to bison or buffalo by the indigenous peoples of the Americas. This is a painting by Carl Bodmer of the buffalo dance of the Nummo Kiki, also known as the Maya Dana, created between 1832 and 1834. The Nummo Kiki, its traditional home was located on the banks of the Missouri, Heart, and Knife Rivers in present-day North and South Dakota. Dancing was an important aspect of the 8 Nummo ancestors in their association with music. In Dogon ceremonies, masked dancers represented the world, and when they danced publicly, they were dancing the progress of the world and the world order. Their dance represented the smithy beating out the rhythm of the movement of the universe. These photos taken by H. Grobe in 1974 show a Dogon dance ceremony. These tall masks are similar to the grand mask, which is associated with the 8 vibrations of the word. The grand mask was the tallest of all the masks, 15 feet or 4.57 meters above the wearer's head, with 8 sections starting large and becoming smaller until ending with 2 human twins at the top. It appears on the left in this drawing of the vibrations on a spiraling line and the 8 articulations of the word, which the Dogon described as a red giant star spinning the world around. During the dance, the Dogon dancer would lower his head and spin the tall mask around. Through history, there have been many ancient musical instruments created with the physical characteristics of the alien Nummo and Nummo ancestors. Shell trumpets, which are associated with the Nummo's aquatic nature, have been known since the Upper Paleolithic. An example is this 18,000-year-old conch marsulis, an archaeological Canlampus shell trumpet on display at the Museum of Toulouse. This photo of the horn, which was found in the Marsulis cave in 1931, was taken by Didier Descouen. According to Lena Zeldovich of the Smithsonian Magazine, this 18,000-year-old horn was recently played by a professional horn player after being rediscovered in the museum. On closer examination, it was revealed that the shell instrument had been decorated with traces of red pigment. A series of red dots covered the opening, which were similar to a painting of a large red bison on the cave wall, shown here. The red paint may be making an association with a red giant star. It appears to connect the musical horn with the bison. Since the early depictions of the constellation Centaurus were depicted as a bison, it may perhaps be alluding to the constellation and perhaps the Alpha Centauri system, the closest star system to Earth. It may have been a dying red giant star that initially brought the alien Nummo to Earth. Olga Tameli indicated that the Nummo first came here because it was the only planet available to them. The fish-tailed alien Nummo, who represented the divine feminine and were mothers, creators, and regenerators of life, were symbols of red giant stars. The French name Notre Dame means Our Lady in English, and in my book, The Rose, which is about Dogon star knowledge, I suggest that the rose windows seen in cathedrals like Notre Dame of Paris are depicting red giant stars. 13th century Parisian litanies refer to Mary as the mystical rose. The West Rose window found on the front of Notre Dame Cathedral, shown here in this photo by Jerome Dumontet, includes the 12 signs or constellations of the zodiac, and was originally completed around 1225. This is a photo by Christophe Misera of the North Rose window, which was created by Jean de Chelles beginning in 1250. In the 14th century, a second church organ was created and was placed before the rose window of the nave in order to distribute the sound better. This is reminiscent of the calabash or gourd, a symbol of a red giant star placed on the musical bow to resonate the sound. It is associated with the vibrations that the red giant stars emit into the universe to both create and regenerate life. The constellation of the Virgin is the second largest constellation of the zodiac, and Spica, Alpha Virginis, is a blue giant and the brightest star in the constellation. The constellation is shown on this constellation card from Urania's Mirror, published around 1825, with the star Spica Alpha Virginis shown as the wheat in the Virgin's hand. I refer to Spica Alpha Virginis in my book, The Rose, because it was celebrated during pagan and Christian Easter celebrations, suggesting renewal and resurrection. Blue giants like Alpha Virginis eventually evolve into red giant stars, and the blue giant star Alpha Virginis is midway between a subgiant and a giant star, and is one of the nearest stars to our sun that has enough mass to end its life in a Type II supernova explosion. According to Richard Hinckley Allen, the star's name is derived from the Latin Spica Virginis, the Virgin's ear of wheat. Dogon bells symbolized red giant stars, the divine feminine and pregnancy, in the sense that red giant stars give birth to new worlds, and the Dogon compared a pregnant woman to an ear of millet beginning to swell within its leafy spiral. Such an ear was said to have found its voice. This reminds us of Spica Alpha Virginis as the Virgin's ear of wheat. The bells of Notre Dame became a familiar part of the life in Paris, where they were known as the cathedral's voice. This photograph of a modern-day New Year's Day ceremony inside Notre Dame, taken by Melville, gives you some idea of how prominent the rose window is in the church. In this photo, everyone in the church is looking towards the statue of the Virgin, Mary and Child, which was created in the early 14th century. In this close-up of the statue by Ibex 73, you can see a mermaid just below the Virgin, which would have been almost at eye level with the parishioners. This is a closer view of her, suggesting an association with the Nummo ancestors, specifically the seventh Nummo ancestor, the master mistress of speech. There is evidence that on the site of Notre Dame Cathedral, there was once a Gallo-Roman temple, which included the pillar of the boatman, dated to the 1st century. It depicts the only known, undisputed reference to the Celtic horned god Cernunnos. This is a model of the pillar, which is from the Cluny Museum. It shows Cernunnos with torques on his horns in this close-up by Chris O. The pillar was found on March 6, 1710, during the construction of a crypt under the nave of Notre Dame. This is believed to be another depiction of Cernunnos on the Gundestrup cauldron from the National Museum of Denmark. He holds a ram horned serpent, a symbol of the alien Nummo in the Dogon religion. And he is surrounded by animals, not unlike the depiction of the musician Orpheus in my previous video. I believe it is because the Nummo and Nummo ancestors had horns on their heads that the horn became such a significant musical instrument. According to Roman Cauldron, the horn was a symbol of sorcery and was banned in Germany until the beginning of the 18th century. In 1681, a bell was created for Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris with the horned head of centaurs appearing on top, as shown here in this drawing by one of the bell's founders, Nicolas Chapelle. It is interesting to note that after the bell was installed by the founders, and with King Louis XIV and Maria Theresa acting as the bell's godparents, it was asked to be removed the following year because they said it was improperly tuned. The founders refused and were eventually sued. Well, did this have something to do with the centaurs depicted on top of the bell, since centaurs play such an important role in the old religion? The name of the bell is also a reference to St. James the Great, whose symbol was the scallop shell that pilgrims wore to the Cathedral of San Diego de Compostela in Spain, where his remains are believed to be buried. This is a photo by born Christian Torreson of St. James dressed as a pilgrim on the facade of the church with scallop shells on his clothing and hat. Notice the twin men in front and the twin cherubs on either side, like the twin sirens. According to legend, the hermit Pelagius rediscovered the tomb in 814 after witnessing strange lights in the night sky. The demonization of the old religion didn't exist at the time Maurice de Sully, the Bishop of Paris from 1160 to 1196, began building Notre Dame Cathedral. Myths about siren songs luring humans to their death came from later patriarchal cultures as a way to discredit the musical beliefs of the old religion involving the alien Nummo and Nummo ancestors. De Sully, who didn't have negative views of sirens, mermaids, or centaurs, spoke of a story he imagined about God sending an angel in the form of a bird to a man who wanted to know what paradise was like. Enchanted, the man stayed listening to the bird for 300 years. De Sully exclaimed, "Imagine what paradise must be like if the son of an angel alone can put a man in ecstasy and make him confuse 300 years for 1 hour. Imagine indeed." Well, on that magical note, I encourage you to try listening to that long-lost song filled with the vibrations of the immortal and natural worlds. It is a tune that is played since the beginning of time and is a part of all of us. For more information on the alien Nummo and the old religion, you can refer to my website, shannondorey.com, where you can purchase my books. Thanks for watching.